Wisdom, the final frontier to true knowledge. Welcome to Wisdom Trek, where our mission is to create a legacy of wisdom, to seek out discernment and insights, to boldly grow where few have chosen to grow before. Hello, my friend. I am Guthrie Chamberlain, your captain on our journey to increase wisdom and create a living legacy. Thank you for joining us today as we explore wisdom on our second millennium of podcasts. This is day 1416 of our trek, and it is Worldview Wednesday. Creating a biblical worldview is essential in order to have a proper perspective on today's current events. To establish a biblical worldview, you must have a proper understanding of God and His Word. Our focus for these several months has been, on Worldview Wednesday, mastering the Bible through a series of brief insights. These insights are extracted from a book by the same title from one of today's most prominent Hebrew scholars, Dr. Micheal S. Heiser. This book is a collection of insights designed to help you to understand the Bible better. When we let the Bible be what it is, we can understand it as the original readers did and as the original writers intended. Each week we will explore 2 additional insights. Today's title will be Mastering the Bible, Intolerant Apostles and Cryptic Revelations. Insight number 75. The apostles didn't tolerate aberrant teaching about the gospel. Both testaments of the Bible bear witness to the problem of competing religious ideas that were contrary to biblical faith and theology. In the Old Testament period, the polytheistic religious systems of the surrounding nations were a persistent threat to Israel's exclusive loyalty to Yahweh as the true God. That loyalty was core to Israel's faith and the basis of salvation in the Old Testament. Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 4 tells us, "Listen, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone." In the New Testament period, idolatry and the danger of worshiping a lesser god was still the target of apostolic teaching and writing. Paul admonished the Corinthians to be careful about eating meat sacrificed to idols, warning them that, in doing so, they were at risk of committing idolatry and fellowshipping with demons. Since Paul elsewhere permits eating such meat, advising believers not to make a fuss about offerings that were sold in a marketplace, the issue for Paul must have been avoiding any sort of activity that either was participation in the ritual or could be construed in that way. The more significant problem was false teaching. However, it seems to involve teachers that profess to follow Jesus, but whose teachings altered the simplicity of the gospel. That salvation only was by grace through faith, as we're told in Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 and 9, and was available to Jew and Gentile alike. Paul and the other apostles repeatedly had to deal with Judaizers who argued that the Gentiles had to conform to specific points of the Mosaic Law to be in right standing before God. Paul referred to those who taught such things as the circumcision party, and famously confronted Peter for his failure to oppose their teaching. Peter knew better, but was afraid to speak up against the Judaizers in Antioch. Paul referred to such behavior as hypocrisy and out of step with the gospel. The Judaizing seemed to have been focused on circumcision, since Paul later accuses the Judaizers themselves as being lawbreakers. And this dialogue can be found in the book of Galatians. The point is that they had only focused on outward conformity to the Jewish identity and not the heart. They presumed that being Jewish meant superior status with God, and we know that any type of prejudice is not of God. Peter himself would later have a problem with false teaching. He, along with Jude, had to confront self-proclaimed prophets who rejected moral authority. The false teachers were apparently professing Christians since they participated in the Lord's Supper in Jude verse 12, but Jude rejected their profession, charging them that they didn't have the Holy Spirit, Jude verse 19. As the epistles show us, we shouldn't tolerate teachings that alters the gospel or encourages a life devoid of biblical morals. When it comes to false teaching, tolerance is no virtue. Now let's move on to insight number 76. Revelation is hard to interpret because apocalyptic prophecy isn't designed to be clear. Even though there is a lot in the Bible that is difficult to understand, most of it was written for clarity. This isn't the case with Revelation. The last book of the New Testament is a classic example of what scholars call apocalyptic genre. John's Apocalyptus makes that clear. Revelation is just one of many apocalyptic texts that have survived from antiquity. The normative feature of apocalyptic literature is well known. The Revelation has them in abundance. Apocalyptic books aim to reveal the future, specifically at the end of human history, in a cryptic fashion. Apocalyptic secrets are heavenly and not of earth. For that reason, the genre communicates its message in visions and uses angelic mediators to convey its secrets. John's book derives from visions he saw in heaven. Angels appeared in Revelation over 50 times, and in many cases they give John insight into these heavenly visions. Despite this help, the context of the book is still a mystery in several places in Revelation chapter 10 and Revelation 17. Unsurprisingly, the book is riddled with symbolic language, unidentified elder spirits, living creatures full of eyes, scrolls with seals, celestial signs such as sun, moon, and stars, angels and trumpets, a great fiery abyss from which emerged locusts, a dragon, beast emerging from the sea and earth, and the great prostitute. Basically, all this imagery comes from the Old Testament. Unfortunately for us, the imagery was symbolic to begin with, and Revelation at times changes the context and the nature of these images. But our real disadvantage is that we come from another time and culture. While ancient readers would have instantly understood these particular symbols, our understanding is anything but intuitive since we don't share their worldview. This deliberately cryptic book, therefore, becomes even more abstruse. To have any hope of understanding the book, we need to first understand the meaning of the metaphors and symbols in the Old Testament, and then read carefully on how John uses the Old Testament. If this sounds like work, it is, and it gets worse. A lot hinges on discerning when the book was written, which in large part depends on one passage in the book that is difficult to interpret. On top of that, it's unclear whether we should read the book as a chronological sequence of events or as a series of repeating cycles. The choice of reading strategy leads to dramatically different conclusions about the book's meaning. The dismaying truth is that Revelation isn't easy to understand because it wasn't meant to be easy to understand. And for that reason, be very suspicious of anyone who tells you that they haven't figured out. And we'll dive deeper into this over the next couple of weeks. And that will conclude this week's lesson on another 2 insights from Dr. Heiser's book, Mastering the Bible. Next Worldview Wednesday, we will continue with 2 additional insights. I believe that you'll find each Worldview Wednesday interesting topics to consider as we build our biblical worldview. Tomorrow we will continue with our 3-minute humor nugget that will provide you with a bit of cheer, which will help you to lighten up and live a rich and satisfying life. So encourage your friends and family to join us and to come along with us tomorrow for another day of Wisdom Trek, Creating a Legacy. If you'd like to listen to any of the past 1,415 treks or read the Wisdom Journal, they are all available at wisdom-trek.com. And I encourage you to subscribe to Wisdom Trek on your favorite podcast player so that each day will be downloaded to you automatically. And thank you so much for allowing me to be your guide, your mentor, but most importantly, I am your friend as I serve you through the Wisdom Trek podcast and journal each day. And as we take this trek of life together, let us always live abundantly, love unconditionally, listen intentionally, learn continuously, lend to others generously, lead with integrity, and leave a living legacy each day. I am Guthrie Chamberlain, reminding you to keep moving forward, enjoy your journey, and create a great day every day. See you tomorrow.